Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Optimized Real Estate Podcast. I'm Rod Wilson, your host, where it's my job to find some of the movers and shakers in the real estate industry and interview them to get some of the nuggets and tips, strategies, ideas around optimizing your business. And today has been a long time coming. I'm actually really excited to share this one with you. I interview Sandra Ruiz, and she is with fixyourcreditconsulting.com, Fix Your Credit Consulting. And basically, she helps people get their credit fixed. And we go through a bunch of things I've been wanting to ask an expert in this space for a long time. So without further ado, enjoy the episode. Hey, everybody, I'm on with Sandra Ruiz. How you doing, Sandra?
I'm good. Thank you, Rod. How are you doing?
I'm great. I've actually been looking forward to having this call for a long time. I know we met each other, relatively recently. You came highly recommended from one of my clients. Anyway, so I've actually just, I guess, requested a couple other credit folks to come join, and it just didn't really work out. So I was glad to come across you, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I love talking about what I do.
Yeah, no, this is a huge topic, and I've actually done some posts and content around basically recommending to my customers and prospects to focus more on their credit because it's a direct pricing, structure, leverage, everything's kind of related to having a certain credit score. And I'm always surprised that some of the more experienced investors and run a pretty successful business don't have great credit, and they kind of are almost penalized as far as what we do on the lending side.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is they end up paying, in cash. And so they don't worry about their credit so much until they need it. And it's so important to always just be ready because you just never know when you're going to need it. And so there's a lot of things that you can do to just keep your credit in good standing.
Well, why don't we start with your background? If you want to share maybe
Yeah.
quick background from, kind of how you got started in this business and in, what you're doing now.
Absolutely. So I'd say it started probably in '03. I started off doing loans like yourself and came across clients that had bad credit and I wanted to help them. And so I asked the broker at the time I was working with, like, what can we do? They want to, refinance or they want to buy, but their credit scores are too low. And he told me, why don't we fix their credit? And so he showed me what to do. And I just started doing it for free for my clients. And, at the time my credit wasn't so great. So I started working on my own credit. And sure enough, I started to see the credit go up and I was able to help those clients. And so I was just doing it for my clients while I was doing loans. And up until '08, I got out of the loan business and still had people calling me to want to fix their credit. And so I decided to focus on that primarily. And, that's all I do now is just help people with their credit. And so that's how it started. And, I also, I can relate to a lot of my clients because I also had bad credit when I was in, when I first learned the business, which has been like 20 years, I went through a bankruptcy myself. So I had to fix and rebuild my credit after a bankruptcy. And so, I can teach my clients what to do, especially when they've, recently filed bankruptcy or if they've recently charged off credit cards or settled credit cards, like how to rebuild and get out of that because I've done a lot of the things that my clients have gone through. And so very relatable. And I can understand where they're coming from and what they're going through because I've been through it myself. And, I've learned so much over the years that I've gotten my score to 850. And so this is what I do is I help my clients and I teach them how to rebuild it and manage it and how they can get to 850 as well.
Wow, that's amazing. I got to be honest, I don't come across very many with that high of credit score.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, you definitely have to be disciplined and not be someone that is constantly like maxing out their credit cards. I have probably about $200,000 in available credit of my own that, I barely use, but that's how I built my credit up just by opening up accounts, taking care of the accounts, having them in good standing, never paying late. So I have automatic payments on all of the accounts that I use. And so I don't have any late payments on my credit and I don't have high balance credit cards. And so that's helped, having a variety of different open accounts also helps, get your credit score that high.
Okay, so that leads to a ton of questions on how to actually do this. So before we get there, I thought maybe, can you just share, I've been around this for a long time, I hate to say probably 30 plus years as far as, doing real estate, I guess worrying about or trying to focus on my credit. How do the credit bureaus work? Because it's so frustrating. It feels like if you use a lot of credit, they hit you, they kind of hammer you down. And then if you don't use any credit, they hammer you down. It's like, what's the sweet spot?
Right. So So basically the credit bureaus are Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, they're being paid by the lenders to report things on your credit. So they pay them to add the accounts to your credit report. And when they need to make changes to the account, like if they have to report you late, when all of that stuff, they get paid by the lenders to report that information on your credit. They update your accounts monthly. So like whenever the lenders report to the bureaus, here's what they currently owe, here, if they have any late payments, all of that stuff gets, updated by the bureaus monthly. The bureaus will, so like your credit score is made up by different things. Like say 30% of it is your overall credit history. So you want to have really good history since most of it is about the history. So you want to have credit cards open for more than 5 years, and you don't want to close credit cards frequently because that also drops your credit scores. The longer you have credit cards open, the better. When you have new credit, it doesn't help your credit right away. You've got to build history for you to see a difference and see what it can do to your credit. So it's good to, keep your accounts open. Don't just open up an account because you're going to get a 10% discount from a store if you're not going to frequently use that card. A lot of the lenders will close your credit card if you don't use it for 6 months or longer, because to them, they think that, well, maybe you lost the card and they're scared that you might have, some fraud or identity theft. So they will shut the card down if you're not using it. So it's good to use your cards at least once or twice every 6 months so that they don't get shut down. It's also good to request credit limit increases every 6 months because this will help your credit score increase, and it just helps your overall credit. So when you do go apply for more credit cards, they see that you qualify for these 10,000 limit credit cards since you're already, getting them from other creditors.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that factor into getting those high limit credit cards. It's history. Having long history helps. Having good payment history, having a great credit score, all of those things will determine, and your income, whatever you report as your income, will also determine what kind of credit limit they're going to give you. So if all of those things are great, then you're going to be able to get those higher limit credit cards. And if you don't be discouraged, because, it's just a matter of you building some good rapport with that creditor to eventually get those limits increased to be a lot more. I'll give you an example. After I think I settled a credit card, and I didn't have any credit cards at the time. So I had to go open a secured credit card. And this is what I recommend my clients do when they have 0 accounts open and they can't get approved for regular unsecured credit cards. I tell them, go put down a deposit with the bank. There's a lot of banks that offer secured credit cards. You can start with as little as $200. I always tell them to put more, because when they get those small $200 limits, a lot of times they'll max them out. So I say, start with like 500 if you can, and use it for small things. Get food, get gas, pay it off. You don't have to use it every month, but when you do use it, you just don't want to go over 30% of the limit, because once you do, your scores will drop. So I tell them, start with those small secured credit cards. And then in 6 months to a year, you will either end up getting your money back and it'll turn into a regular unsecured credit card. And then with that credit card, you can eventually get that limit increase. Like, for example, I opened one up with Union Bank years ago, started with 400 and eventually got it to a 20,000 limit credit card. Wow. Just by rebuilding credit and taking care of my credit.
So I have a ton of questions. So the secured credit card, what's it secured against? Is it a balance?
Your own money. So you're basically putting down like a deposit to open it up,
Gotcha.
Basically secured against your own money, but you have to treat it like a credit card. A lot of people think, well, it's my own money. Why are they reporting me late? Well, because you're using it to rebuild your credit. So you have to treat it like a regular credit card. Yeah.
And then how about, are there credit cards that you could secure against property or other things other than a cash balance?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I was just curious. And then the other thing you mentioned on a new card, when you open a new card, I mean, it's not going to obviously make an impact day one. What's that timeline typically? Is it a couple months? Is it 6 months, a couple years? When do you start getting the benefits?
I'd say a few months.
Okay.
Showing good payment history and low balances, it can definitely, make a difference.
And then you said keep balances under 30% of the available credit.
Yes.
Because I've heard different numbers on that. So that's good to know. And then
20% is better, but just don't go over 30.
Okay. Less than 30. Okay, cool. So you keep going. There's a couple other things I was thinking about asking you, but go ahead. I don't want to.
Yeah, no worries. So what I also do is with my clients that have recent bankruptcies, I tell them to start rebuilding their credit by opening up secured credit cards, do at least like 2 or 3 if they can. Another great thing to help rebuild credit or quickly increase credit is to piggyback onto somebody else's credit card. As long as they pay on time and have low balances, you can easily get onto your spouse's or family member's credit card as an authorized user to help rebuild your credit, and can see your scores increase anywhere from 50 to 100 points just by doing that. You just want to make sure they pay on time and they keep a low balance. And I recommend staying away from American Express cards because a lot of those cards don't show limits. They only show the balance. And if that person uses that card frequently, then it's going to maybe show a high balance. Even if they pay it off every month, it still does not look good on your credit when your credit is pulled at the time that's showing a high balance.
So the key for that, for being added to someone else's, is just make sure they're in that same, less than 30% of the balance. And obviously, they're making their payments on time. How often should people be using? I know that, you don't get a lot of, FICO juice by, just letting an account sit there, with a zero balance. How often do you need to use it to get the benefits or increase your score?
I would say as long as you're showing activity with some of your cards every month, that can help. I would and definitely use your cards more than twice every 6 months, especially if you want those creditors to increase the limits. So you definitely want to show some activity, but you don't have to always show activity, because I don't always use all my credit cards, and I do use them, and I just try to keep the balances under 30% and pay them on time. And that's what's helped me, get to an 850 score. But I also have a mixture of credit. I don't just have credit cards. I also have real estate and car loans on my credit. So it is good to have a balance of more than just credit cards on your credit.
So variety is good, or multiple types of credit.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So I was going to ask you, you mentioned a few of these. Any other low-hanging fruit as far as trying to increase your score? And in my world, it's speed, right? I mean, that's, anyone can increase their credit over a couple of years, but usually we're trying to do it in a couple of weeks or months. Is there anything else that someone should be thinking about as far as increasing their score relatively quickly?
Yeah. So if they have recent collections, or even not even recent, but just any collections on their credit report, paying them and getting the collection agency to give them a deletion letter could help get it off in 5 days, especially if, someone like yourself can do a rapid rescore and get it off quicker than having to wait to, go through the bureaus and get it off in 30 days or more. So that's one of the quickest ways. I usually tell that to a lot of clients who are in the process of buying, if they have any collections and if they're in a place where they can pay them, then I'll advise them to reach out to the collection agency, get them paid, and try to get a deletion letter so that they can get off quickly. Another thing I like to, tell clients that lack credit is add their rental history to their credit report. There's a couple of companies out there that do it. One of them that I work with is called Rent Reporters, and they do report to the bureaus. It'll show up on Equifax and TransUnion. And I've seen my clients get about a 40-point increase just by doing that. It could take about 30 days or so to report, but it is another great tool to add to your credit and just to help build it. So those are a couple things besides the authorized users, because the authorized users can take about 30 to 40 days to show up on the credit, but that is, something else that can be helpful, if they do have low credit scores.
And then going back to adding to someone's existing account, that's super easy, right? They just basically add you as a signer. I mean, I've had this done before because I was kind of like you. I had, after 08, had pretty rough credit. And, I went on a few of my mom's cards as an example. And obviously I didn't even have a card. I just said, I don't want a card, just add me. Is it that simple?
Totally simple. All you need to provide them with is your name, your date of birth, your social. And then if they ask for an address, I just tell them, it's the same address, so that whoever the card holder is will receive the card, and then they can just cut it up. They don't have to give it to you to use it, because you really don't want to use the card. You're just basically piggybacking onto their good credit to help you. So I'll give an example. I tell a lot of my clients to help their kids that are in high school do this by adding them to their credit cards, because if they start then, that by the time they get out of high school and they're starting to get into college and apply for loans and apartments and car loans, their scores are usually in the 700s, and they can usually get stuff on their own without needing a cosigner. I did this for my son, and he was able to get his first car with, had 700 credit score. And a lot of my clients have been able to do that as well for their client, their kids, not have to cosign on student loans. So that's another great tool just to do to help your kids, so that you don't have to cosign for them, because, you don't want to cosign for anybody, even if it's your kid, because if they pay late, you're going to be affected as well, because
Right.
it's their credit.
No, that is a great point. I love that. And been on my kids about, getting cards and doing that on their own. But yeah, I like that.
And teach them how to manage their credit, when they do start getting credit cards, that they don't max them out or pay them late, just get overextended, because a lot of my clients are, people that didn't know how to manage credit, because we don't get taught this in school. And so they get into college and they get all these credit card offers and on campus, and they think it's free money, and
Right.
they don't know how to manage it. So they get into credit card debt and damage their credit at a young age. So you got to teach them, how to take care of it.
Exactly. I want to go back to, you mentioned the rapid rescore. Can you explain what that is and how to use that?
Yeah. So like when you're working with a lender, the company they pull credit from usually can submit stuff to the credit bureaus quicker. I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but it's a system internally that you basically submit like a deletion letter from the collection agency through the company you pull credit with, and that company will reach out to the bureau to get it removed. I mean, they have to pay them a fee, of course, to get it done quicker, but I've seen things like that come off in like less than 5 days.
Wow.
And
Okay,
I used to do it myself when I did loans, back in the day. And, I know they still do it, but it is like one of the, quickest way to get something removed off the credit report. Usually when you work with a credit repair company like ours, it takes anywhere from as little as 30 days to, it can take as much as 60 days to get something like that removed.
Okay. And then what about, can people do anything about, well, I mean, obviously, derogs, and then foreclosure judgments, things that are kind of more serious? Do you just kind of let time pass, or are there some active things you can do, assuming they're all legit? I know if they're not legit, then you probably, submit letters and try to get it removed.
Right. So I can tell you that they're not easy to remove initially. Most of the time, those items stay on for 7 years. And I have, in my experience, been able to get them off in like maybe 4 years minimum, but usually you don't have to wait the full 7 years. Bankruptcies stay on for 10 years, and they are one of the hardest things to remove from credit. I usually don't see those come off unless it's closer to like 7 or 8 years since it was filed, but it's a tough one. I try to, tell people stay away from filing bankruptcy if you can. A lot of people don't realize that they don't need to. They think that they have to, especially, if they don't owe a lot, it's not necessary. You can settle with these companies or just wait until they're old enough to get them removed from your credit report. So it's not always necessary to file, a BK, unless they're suing you and you have assets and they put a lien against your assets, or they're garnishing your wages, or putting a lien against your bank account and you just can't afford to pay it, then that might be the other option. But if they're not doing that, then I would definitely avoid it, at all costs, because once you do file bankruptcy, you're basically in, credit jail for 3 years. You can't buy a house. It's hard to get a car loan. And if you do, you're paying like, double, triple the interest of somebody with okay credit. So I definitely advise against it.
Yeah, no, that I think just from a mindset perspective, I think a lot of people just get so beaten down, and they're just like, okay, fine, just they'll file BK, and like you're saying, I mean, a lot of times there's other options that you just are kind of out of gas, and it's like just want all your these problems to go away. But unfortunately, it doesn't fully go away for a long time.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And, but you can also, like I said, repair some of it by settling with these companies. And if you settle with them, then it looks better on your credit, and that can sometimes increase your scores. And they can then be easier to remove from your credit and not have to be dinged with those things for 7 years.
Right. Okay, let's get into your process and how people can, or how you typically work with your clients.
Okay. So we do a free consultation over the phone. We just need to see a copy of their credit report from all 3 bureaus. We either help them pull one over the phone through a site like Smart Credit or Identity IQ. Once we review the report, then we'll go over with them all the items that are affecting their credit, because I want to know if they recognize the accounts or not. Sometimes when you have a common name or you're named after somebody, you can end up with somebody else's stuff on your credit report. So I just want to make sure they recognize the accounts, because if they don't, then I have another method to get those type of items removed. So once we go over all of the accounts that are affecting their credit, then I'll also tell them what else they can do to improve their credit. So if they have like high balance credit cards, I'll tell them, okay, try to work on getting these paid down to under 30% of the limits. If they don't have enough credit, and I tell them, okay, you need to build your credit. I send them, several emails of ways to build their credit, like adding their rental history, opening up secured credit cards, getting added to somebody's credit cards as an AU, all of those things that I mentioned to help start to rebuild credit, because we might be able to help get all that stuff off their credit report. But if they don't start doing anything to build it and manage it, and then it's not going to go, they're not going to have a high 700 credit score. It's just going to stay in the low 500 or 600s. So in order to get your score up, you've got to do things to start rebuilding it and just managing it correctly to get there.
Right. I'm curious, when you go through this initial consult, I guess, you have their credit report, they give you the situation, they tell you, I guess, most likely what they're able to do and what they are not able to do as far as like, cash position, whatever. Are you able to determine kind of the timing and what they could expect as far as increasing their score, or do you just have to kind of get into it to be able to figure that out?
I can tell them, usually we'll start to see changes anywhere from, 30 to 90 days, depending on how bad it is. I'll tell them like how long it might take and what kind of increase they might see. But a lot of it is just kind of guesstimating, because it all depends on like, what else they do. If they continue to increase their credit card debt, then their scores aren't going to move a lot. Or if they get new collections hitting their credit report or new lates hitting their credit report, well, their scores are going to drop.
Right.
So I let them know, like, look, that can happen. And if that happens, your scores may drop. Just know that sometimes removing some of these accounts can cause your scores to drop, especially if you have nothing else open right now. So that's why I like encouraging them to try to rebuild their credit. And the ones that listen to me are always seeing, the huge difference right away. But it's the ones that don't, that are like, hey, why isn't my credit score going up? And I'm like, well, duh, you're not doing anything things I told you to do. You've got to start building it. You can't have a 800 credit score when you have nothing open and no history. Like I had a client recently, he was asking me why he kept getting denied by, Chase. And I was like, well, how long have your accounts been open for? And he's like, oh, about a year. I said, well, that's probably why you don't have a lot of credit history. You're like basically like somebody just out of high school starting their credit, building all over again,
Right.
When you new credit, it's hard to get, creditors like Chase and, the big banks to want to approve you because they don't know who you are. They want to make sure you're going to pay your bills on time. And so, you got to start with the smaller banks, like Capital One is easier to get, First Progress. Some of those companies are easier to get approved with when you're just beginning to build your credit again.
Good.
Yeah. So once the consultation with, and I go over with them, okay, here's what we can help you with. Here's what we charge. We do offer a monthly plan. And I tell them, here's what we'll need from you. We basically need their ID documents to verify their identity. On occasions, I'll need them to get a document notarized, like if there's items that don't belong to them on their reports. And so once they hand everything over, we'll get started. We'll send them emails letting them know we've gotten started. And I tell them, check in with us every 40 days so I can give you an update and let you know what's going on. I required them to keep a credit monitoring account open so that we can check their credit every 40 days. Otherwise, we won't know what's going on without having access to check their credit. We ask them to, send us any letters they receive in the mail from the bureaus. If the bureaus have deleted any accounts, that will also help us. And so I tell them, stay engaged, check in with us, because this is your credit. It's important for you, to know what's going on. I don't take on clients that I can't help. So if I don't think I can help them, I'm not going to sign them up. And I do get clients like that because I can't remove recent charge-offs. If they just stopped paying all their credit cards off last year, those aren't going to come off right now. So those clients, I'll advise them to settle them if you can, or wait until they're older. They're just too new to remove. So then I'll advise them on how to rebuild their credit and start over again until they can get that stuff off their credit report. But yeah, once we start working with them, we typically work with them for about 6 months, but they start to see results in as little as, 30 to 90 days. But, our goal is try to remove as much as possible that is hurting their credit and just continue to teach them to have good credit habits, so that they don't become return clients and that they can eventually just do this on their own. I do on occasion have some return clients that I've become really good friends with, but, I love what I do. I love helping people and that they're able to go and get a home and get a car and get an apartment or whatever it is that they want to do that, is really, gratifying for us.
Absolutely. No, it sounds like very rewarding because it's really life-changing, especially when you've, gone through a BK or some, major event.
Absolutely.
What about inquiries? What's the deal there? I mean, I've heard that you can have a couple inquiries without any impact. Is there any truth to that? And, what should people be concerned about?
So inquiries stay on for 2 years. They can be removed sooner. I've been able to get them off of Experian and Equifax only. TransUnion is the only one that is just very difficult. They just don't want to remove them.
So wait a minute. And we're talking about inquiries like someone just checked your credit, right?
Someone checked your credit because you applied for a credit card or you applied for a loan.
So that stays on for 2 years.
Stays on for 2 years.
Oh, wow. And so do they just kind of add up and then you get dinged accordingly, or?
So you don't want to get too many too soon because that can drop your scores a lot. You're looking at maybe anywhere from a 2 to 4 point hit every time they do pull your credit. And that can be depending on whether they pull it from one bureau or if they pull it from all three. So I know like people that have really bad credit, if they go car shopping, they end up with 20 inquiries on their credit.
Oh.
The lenders are just trying to find anybody to give them a loan, and then they don't tell them they're going to run their credit like crazy. And so I end up getting a lot of clients like that. I mean, I have some clients that just don't want even one inquiry on their credit report. If they get denied by that lender, they're calling me to remove, just a couple of inquiries. You just don't want to have too many on your credit because it does look bad to lenders. They think that you're out, shopping for more debt, and, they don't like to see too many inquiries. People have gotten denied for more credit just from having too many inquiries. I get a lot of clients who are business owners that are trying to build their business credit, and they get denied for business credit for having too many inquiries. So you just want to avoid, shopping for too much, credit. Do it if it's necessary. You can't remove inquiries on accounts you got approved for because the accounts could get closed. So those you'll have to live with until they fall off on their own in 2 years. But we can remove them off of the lenders that you didn't get approved with.
So do you get any freebies, like inquiries that do not affect your credit?
Sometimes if they're soft pulls.
Okay, I was going to ask you about soft pulls, but for a hard pull, it's one hard pull is going to affect your credit. Did you say 2 to 4 points?
Yes.
Okay, that's a given. And then as you accumulate, like I get, 2 this month and 2 in 6 months and 2 in 2 years, none of those fall off for 2 years. And then each time, does it get more damaging or, more points are off, or?
No, I think the points get deducted when they initially pull your credit.
Okay.
So you just want to, if you do it that as often as you just mentioned, it's not too bad. If you're not, it's just like some people will go and like apply for 10 credit cards one day, or, go and try to get a car loan and they get their credit, dinged 20 times. So you just want to just avoid those. You don't want to apply for too much credit. It's not good to have too many credit cards, and it's not good to have too many inquiries because the lenders don't like that.
And then the ones that, let's just say you had, I don't know, shopping for a car, you had 5 inquiries, you get hammered, whatever it is, 20 points. Does it, assuming everything else stays the same, meaning you're paying your bills and all that, do those essentially, or that ding in your score, does it go up the next month? Because I've been told when you get inquiries, you will get affected, but it goes right back, assuming you're, nothing's changed.
Yeah, I don't think it'll go back up the next month. It might take a couple months for you to do history with that account before you see that increase.
Okay. And then on soft pulls, is there no hit at all to your credit on a soft pull?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So some lenders will do a soft pull. Like if you have a credit card that you automatically get an increase without even requesting it, those are usually soft pulls.
Okay.
They usually base it off of like your history. You pay on time, you're keeping your balance low. So they'll just automatically give you that increase. But if you request a increase, then a lot of times, so there's a way to do a soft pull where they don't check your credit. And then if they only give you like, say, an increase of like 2,000, but you want more, then that requires a hard pull. And if your credit is good and you think you'll get approved for it, then it's okay to do it because you might get an extra 5,000 more.
Right. Okay. And then I had a scenario. I was kind of surprised, and I never know how real these are, but a prospect was telling me his credit was pretty bad. And he was saying that it was BMW, and he said at the 28-day mark, it wasn't even like technically a 30-day late. At 28 days, they dinged him with a late, and it, dropped him below, in our case, 650, which, we can no longer lend to him. Does that sound right? I mean, can they just arbitrarily like ding you, or is that something? And if they do you just have to go fight it and get it removed?
You have to fight it. They're not supposed to do it if it's less than 30 days. You can definitely fight it if it's been less than 30 days. But yeah, technically, they're not supposed to ding you until it's been 30 days from the due date.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, this has been awesome. I'm looking forward to getting this out there and hopefully helping some people get their credit up. So I guess, Sandra, maybe just what's the best way to reach you? I mean, do you want people to go into your website?
Yeah. You can go to our website. It's fixyourcreditconsulting.com. There's a way to put in your information and we'll reach out to you. You can also check us out on Yelp. We're the highest rated, most reviewed on Yelp. We have over 200 5-star reviews, thanks to our clients that love us, but mostly because we love what we do and we have integrity and, we're honest with our clients. I tell them I'm straightforward. You can call us. Our number is 877-212-2450. You can email us. You can reach us out, contact@fixyourcreditconsulting.com and request a free consultation. Most of our consultations are done over the phone for free. On occasion, do in-person consultations, but we do charge for those because those can take up more time. But most of our clients just prefer to do it over the phone because we can help our clients nationwide. Our clients are all over the US. They don't just have to be in California. So we can definitely help you.
Excellent. No, I'm so glad we connected, and I think this is going to be a huge help for people, and myself included, on just little tweaks to get the score up. So thanks for your time, and I will provide everything you mentioned in the show notes so people can easily find you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for your time. This was great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Bye.